Rain clawed the windshield like fingers from another world. Father Elias Kane kept both hands on the steering wheel of his aging Volvo, headlights slicing through the mist-choked trees that lined the narrow forest road. The GPS had lost signal 30 minutes ago. There were no signposts, no lights, only the storm and the towering silhouettes of pine and birch whispering in the dark. He was alone. Not just on the road in life. 2 years had passed since his excommunication, but the Vatican had called him back for this. They said there were signs, symbols, rumors of a sleeping evil. St. Ianna's Church, the letter had said, closed since 1971, reopened 3 months ago under questionable circumstances. He was to investigate. But as the church came into view, a skeletal spire rising from the fog like a finger pointing to hell, he wondered if it was the church being investigated. Or him. Lightning cracked overhead. The church bell, long rusted, never wired to ring, let out a hollow chime. Unseen, unmanned, but not unheard. Inside, the church smelled of damp stone and moldy incense. Candles flickered, though no one had lit them. The pews were empty, yet Elias felt watched. Footsteps echoed above. He climbed the creaking spiral stairs to the choir loft. There was no one, only a Bible, its pages flipping in the still air. He turned to leave and stopped. The pews were now filled. 10 people, silent, staring. Each had hollow eyes, ashen skin. They didn't move. Elias descended the stairs slowly. "Are you parishioners?" No answer. Only when he approached did he see it. Their feet did not touch the floor. They hung inches above it. He backed away. One figure whispered, voice like dried leaves. The bells woke her. We were only the first. Elias broke into the vestry and found the old priest's quarters. Dust covered everything. On the desk lay a leather-bound journal. He flipped through pages. May 14th. Strange scratching in the walls. May 21st. They say she walks again. I sealed the crypt. God forgive me. June 1st. The Mass was wrong. It was never Latin. It was her tongue. A final page, written in blood. Don't look at her face. Thunder rumbled. Something heavy dragged across the roof. The basement door was bricked shut. Elias broke it down with a rusted candle holder. Stairs spiraled into darkness. The air grew colder, foul. He reached the crypt. Coffins stacked, all opened, empty. On the far wall, a stone slab altar. Upon it, a porcelain doll with human hair. Its eyes opened. Elias screamed and stumbled back. The slab cracked. A whisper in the dark. Sanctuary denied. She appeared first in the mirror, veil soaked, eyes burned shut with wire. Mother Cardia. She had led the last congregation in 1971. They'd performed the Mass of Unmaking, a forbidden rite. All had died. She had remained. Now she walked again. She moved without sound, but her presence brought rot. Flowers turned to ash. Holy water hissed. "You came to free us," she said, voice like bones. Elias held up his crucifix. "You cannot free what was chosen," she hissed, and vanished in smoke. Midnight. Elias woke to chanting. He crept to the nave. The ghostly parishioners sang in dead tongues, The walls bled, the crucifix turned upside down. Above them, hanging by threads of rosary beads, children, singing, smiling. One looked at Elias. Help her finish the hymn. Elias collapsed to his knees. What hymn? The girl smiled wider. The one that ends the world. The confessional door was ajar. Inside, incense smoldered. Elias stepped in. The screen slid open. Nothing visible on the other side. Father, a voice whispered. I lied. About what? He asked. About death. The booth locked. Lights failed. Cold fingers gripped his throat. It never ends, Father. We bring it back, over and over. And now, you're the last priest. He saw it. In the nave, on the altar, wrapped in veil and rot. The doll had grown. A full woman now. Beautiful, terrible. Her face shifted hundreds of eyes. Smiling mouths, screaming souls. She reached for Elias. Come, you carry the seed now. You've already begun the chant. He clutched his chest. His heart beat in strange rhythm, like bells. He was becoming. Elias lit the church with oil. Every pew, every painting, every page of the cursed hymnal. The spirit screamed. Mother Cardia begged. If she burns, the veil breaks. The world floods. So be it, Elias muttered. He struck the match. Flames engulfed the sanctuary. The doll woman shrieked. Her face melted into smoke. Dawn. Ashes smoldered. St. Anna's was gone. Elias staggered into the field. Then a sound. From deep beneath the earth. Bells. Not broken, not rusted. Ringing. Calling. Elias wept. Because he finally understood. You cannot burn what has already been reborn. Sanctuary was never for the living. And the Mass had just begun again. The village of Breachmore lived in silence. Nestled between jagged cliffs and the raging northern sea, it was a place forgotten by time, and by God, if you ask the locals. Only the old stayed now. Those too stubborn, too haunted, or too poor to leave. They all avoided one place, St. Oran's Church. It stood alone on the cliff's edge, hunched like a sentinel. Wind battered its crumbling steeple. Ivy clutched its stone skin like veins. The bell tower had collapsed decades ago. But some nights, especially Sundays, you could still hear it toll. Just once. At midnight. And worse still, on those nights, there was music. Not the scratchy record players of the tavern, nor the low hum of the sea winds. It was hymns. Voices in perfect harmony, low, mournful, and inhuman. Voices that shouldn't echo in an empty church. The villagers learned not to ask, not to listen, not to go near. Until Father Caleb arrived. Freshly ordained, eager and idealistic, Caleb took his assignment to Breachmore as a challenge and a blessing. He arrived in the rain, collar stiff with starch, eyes full of purpose. At the tavern, he introduced himself to silence. Then the innkeeper's wife, Maura, said 3 words that made every head turn. St. Oran still sings. Caleb blinked. I'm sorry. She wiped her hands on her apron and met his gaze. Her eyes were pale and unfocused, like they'd seen too much fog, too much night. Midnight Mass, she said. But no priest, no people, just the old choir. And they sing for the sea now. The tavern emptied quickly after that. Caleb asked the bishop for records. There were none. St. Oran's had been closed for 30 years after the last priest, Father Elias Marin, vanished without explanation. The church was sealed, declared spiritually compromised. But no one had ever explained what that meant. The next Sunday, Caleb went alone. Storms rolled in as he climbed the narrow path to the church. The cliffs below groaned, waves smashing rock like war drums. Wind screamed through trees like voices calling. By the time he reached the gates, midnight was near. St. Oran stood untouched by time, or rather, untouched by man. Time had done plenty. The oak doors were split and rotted. A great crack ran down the center, as though they'd been forced shut long ago, and the church had tried to keep something in. Candles burned inside, fresh, lit by unseen hands. Caleb pushed the door open. It creaked like something waking. Inside, dust thickened the air like smoke. The pews were warped and broken, some half buried in moss. A rusted organ loomed to the right, keys stuck with dried blood. Stained glass saints stared down with hollow sockets. Every face had been scratched away. And still, the altar glowed with warm, flickering candlelight. Then came the sound. Footsteps, cloth moving, voices humming. From the shadows behind the pulpit emerged the choir. 20 figures robed in tattered ecclesiastical garments. Their movements were slow, unnatural, like puppets pulled by frayed strings. They filed into a semicircle. And they began to sing. Caleb staggered. The sound wasn't music. It was wrong, ancient, discordant and harmonious at once. A sound that didn't belong in this world. It bypassed his ears and struck his soul. He dropped to his knees. The song vibrated the wood beneath him, and that's when he noticed the floorboards were not solid. Some were split. Beneath the cracks, he saw them. Mouths. Dozens, hundreds, moving, whispering, gasping. Mouths of the dead. A child's lips moved in silent agony. An old man's teeth gnashed. Some were sewn shut with black thread. Others were held open by decayed fingers. The floor was a mass grave. And beneath it, they were still alive. A cold wind blew through the church. The choir raised their heads. Their faces were pale, waxen, stretched like thin leather over hollow skulls, and stitched. Every mouth was bound shut with dark thread. Yet still they sang. Not with lungs, not with tongues. With air. Their hollow bodies caught the wind and played it like instruments. Sound emerged not from their mouths, but from the void within. They were empty, dead, and still singing. Caleb scrambled back. "Who are you?" he gasped. The choir turned to face him. Their song changed. It grew personal. He heard his name in it. He heard memories, his mother's voice, his fears, his own sermons twisted and sung back at him in mockery. Then the doors slammed shut behind him. The pulpit cracked. From below it rose another figure. Black robes, burnt collar, eyes scorched blind. Father Elias. He wavered as he walked, skin peeling like old bark. Too late, he rasped. Too late to stop it. Too late to forget. You heard them. Caleb shook his head. You're dead. I tried to seal them in, Elias said. I buried the crypt. I stitched my own mouth. But it wasn't enough. The villagers, they kept listening. He pointed to the choir. They are saints no more. They are echoes, hollow things. They sing for the sea now, for what came from it. The hymn built in pitch. It vibrated the walls. Caleb clutched his crucifix. You said it's not too late? Elias shook his head. It's too late for you. He opened his mouth wide. From within slithered thread, black, living, writhing like worms. It flew through the air toward Caleb. He screamed, but no sound came. The thread forced its way down his throat, around his tongue, up his nostrils. It stitched across his lips, needle and thread working in unison. Darkness crawled in. He fell. Time passed. He awoke to singing. His own voice joined it. He stood among the choir. Wind passed through his hollow chest. His lungs were gone. His heart was still. But he sang. And outside, the sea answered. Back in Breachmore, the villagers still hear it. A low melody on the storm winds. A note that lingers in their ears long after they close the windows. They know what it means. St. Oran's is open again. And the choir grows. One voice at a time. Rain hammered the roof of Jacob Renner's car as he pulled into the forgotten village of Bracken Hollow. The windshield wipers groaned. Beyond the veil of water, a blackened steeple pierced the sky like a rusted spear. The GPS blinked out. Jacob frowned. He was a documentary filmmaker, traveling to rural areas to uncover forgotten lore. This place hadn't been on any map, just a scribbled note handed to him by an old woman outside a library in Norwich. Go to Bracken Hollow, the church there. It sleeps, but not forever. Jacob had thought it was eccentric nonsense. Yet here he was, drawn by curiosity and a hunger for the unknown. The village was eerily still. Not abandoned, just paused. Windows shuttered. No bird song, no dogs barking. Even the wind seemed to tiptoe. The church sat at the village center. Charred black walls, boarded windows, and a door that seemed stitched shut by vines. Above the entrance, St. Abraham's Church. Come ye weary and be heard. He parked his car, slung his camera bag over his shoulder, and approached. An old man in a tattered priest's cassock appeared from a nearby alley. Don't go in there. Jacob turned. You live here? The man stared past him at the church. I remain. That place, it's not a church anymore. Hasn't been since the slumber began. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Slumber? A massive sleep. They thought it would bring peace. It didn't. Jacob turned his camera on. Can I interview you? But the man vanished. No footsteps, no farewell. Just gone. The church doors creaked open behind Jacob, unbidden. The air inside was thick with mildew and something older, like dust from a forgotten crypt. Pews stretched toward a collapsed altar. Murals, half burned, showed angels with closed eyes. Jacob lifted his camera and recorded. St. Abraham's, said to be sleeping, not abandoned. Sleeping. In the silence, he heard it, singing, soft, faint. He turned. No one there. Then he noticed the crucifix on the wall had no Christ, just a twisted black figure where he should have been, its mouth sewn shut with silver thread. He stepped closer. The eyes opened. Jacob fell backward, clutching his chest. The figure hadn't moved, but its eyes were open, wide, weeping blood. Then, from beneath the floorboards, came whispers, chanting. He stumbled down a hallway behind the altar. A spiral stairwell led into darkness. His flashlight flickered. Go down. He couldn't say where the voice came from. His mind? The walls? The thing on the cross? But he obeyed. Stone steps descended forever. Water dripped. Symbols in rust lined the walls, sleeping eyes, crossed tongues, open coffins. At the bottom, a vast underground sanctuary. Dozens of pews, and every seat filled with unmoving people. He approached slowly. Their eyes were sewn shut, mouths open in screams. Not statues, not mannequins. Real. A woman in the front pew moved her hand. Barely. Jacob knelt. Ma'am? She whispered, Don't wake them. He backed away, too fast. His foot struck a rusted offering bowl. It rang like a bell. All eyes snapped open. The threads tore. Their mouths screamed. Not sound, but wind. A wind that carried memories, voices, pain. Jacob's flashlight exploded. In the dark, he saw them rise, their faces twisted in ecstatic horror. The sleep ends, they chanted. The choir rises. He ran, back up the stairs. But the path twisted. The church above was not where he'd left it. The hallways had changed. Every window now looked outside, tonight, even though it was noon when he entered. Jacob found the old priest waiting at the altar, eyes glowing. You were the final bell, filmmaker. The mass cannot continue without the watcher. I didn't agree to anything. You filmed. You bore witness. You opened the eye. Behind the priest, the mural now bled. The angels screamed, their wings curled into claws. The pews erupted in fire. Black smoke formed faces. Cleanse him, said the priest. Hands grabbed Jacob, dragged him into a stone basin filled with dark water. He struggled, panicked, as the cold water surrounded him, covering his mouth, his eyes, and then his thoughts. Then came the visions. Strange gatherings in the woods at midnight. People standing in circles beneath glowing moons. A ceremony where the leader faded into shadow as the dream began. Voices chanting lullabies in forgotten languages. Melodies not meant for waking ears. Jacob gasped awake. He was no longer wet and no longer in the church. But something was wrong. He stood in a version of Bracken Hollow, reversed. The same village, the same sky, but mirrored. Off. Wrong. Street signs were written backwards. People moved slowly down the streets, their expressions fixed in unsettling smiles, wide and unmoving. Then the bell rang. All around him, the villagers fell to their knees and began to hum in unison, low and harmonic. Jacob turned and ran. He found his car waiting, still wet from the rain. He jumped in, started the engine. It worked. but the road twisted endlessly. He drove in every direction. Each path led back to the church. Hours passed, but he was trapped. Jacob returned at last, exhausted, but different. His eyes no longer blinked the same. His voice echoed faintly, as if others whispered beneath it. Inside, the church was waiting for him. The pews were filled, faces turned toward him. And this time, they sang his name. He moved forward toward the altar, not by choice, but as if pulled, as if summoned. Now, the priest's robes hung across his shoulders, waiting, heavy. Above, the old crucifix creaked as it shifted place. Before him, the ancient book opened on its own. Pages glowing faintly, words written in symbols that pulsed with red light. The church itself seemed to breathe. "I receive the Mass," Jacob said. His voice layered, blended with many others. "And I give it again." The congregation responded with a sound that could have been joy or something older. And the church seemed to smile. Days later, someone else arrived. A man named Caleb followed a strange, hand-drawn map he found inside a forgotten book at a dusty library. It led him here, this place not on any map. No birds sang. The air was too still. At its heart stood the church, old, dark, quiet, waiting. Caleb stepped out of his car, camera in hand. The doors opened slowly, as if expecting him. Inside, the new priest stood at the altar. It was Jacob. His lips were closed, but somehow smiling. And the church whispered, "Another has come." Because in Bracken Hollow, the slumber never ends. Sleep isn't the end. It's the beginning. And the choir always welcomes a new voice.